Here's the thing about Prince Harry. He keeps saying things that men aren't supposed to say, and every time he does, a part of the internet rolls its eyes, and another part quietly exhales because someone finally said it. The latest one happened in Melbourne, Australia, April 15th, 2026. He was on stage at a Movember event in conversation with a men's health researcher at a football club of all places. And right in the middle of what was supposed to be a fairly standard appearance about mental health and fatherhood, he said this: "I knew that I had stuff from the past that I needed to deal with, and therefore prepare myself to basically cleanse myself of the past." Sit with that for a second, because that's not a throwaway line. That phrase, "cleanse myself from the past," that phrase matters because it didn't come from clarity. It came from knowing something wasn't right yet. That's a man describing a realization and the decision to do something about it. A specific, deliberate, uncomfortable choice he made before he became a father. And as he kept talking, the more it became clear that what he was really talking about went beyond his own situation. And you can feel how unfamiliar it is, because most men never talk about it at all, let alone out loud, in front of a room full of people. But Harry did it anyway. The event was hosted by Movember at Whitten Oval headquarters of the Western Bulldogs Australian Rules Football Club. And Harry was on stage with Dr. Zach Seidler, Movember's Global Director of Men's Health Research. The topic was fatherhood, specifically the parts of fatherhood that don't make the birth announcements, the harder stuff. And Harry, to his credit, went straight there. He didn't open with how incredible it is to be a dad. He didn't talk about the first moment that he held Archie and everything clicked. Instead, the first thing that he zeroed in on was preparation. The idea that becoming a father isn't just something that happens to you. It's something you can choose to get ready for. And not just logistically, emotionally. Certainly from a therapy standpoint, he said, you want to be the best version of yourself for your kids. Okay, most people are nodding along at this point. But then he made a distinction that I think is actually really important, and I don't think it got enough attention. He said therapy isn't just for when something breaks. There's another kind. There's also the other piece of therapy, which is preventative and getting ahead of it. You don't have to wait until you're lying on the kitchen floor in the fetal position. The kitchen floor in the fetal position, that is a specific image. He's not talking about a rough week at work. He's talking about the point of total collapse that men often have to reach before they will admit that something is wrong. And his whole argument is, you don't have to go there. You can get ahead of it. He chose to. Now, here's where you have to give him credit for being precise, because a lesser version of this speech would have gotten vague at this point. He didn't. He said what he actually did, and he said why. He knew going into fatherhood that he was carrying something. He called it stuff from the past. He didn't name it in detail at this event, and that's his right, but he was clear about the logic. Whatever it was, he didn't want it to quietly follow him into being a parent, and he didn't want it to be the air in the room when he held his kids. So before Archie arrived, he made the decision to deal with it, to clean house. That's what cleanse means here. Not ceremonial, practical. And then came the part that I genuinely think should be shown to every expectant father, because Harry described what actually happened when Archie was born. And he didn't describe the storybook version. He described a disconnection, not a small one either. The kind that makes you question why you're not feeling what you thought you would. And that's a strange place to be, because nothing is technically wrong, but something feels off anyway. Certainly, I felt a disconnection because my wife was the one creating life, and I was there to witness it. He even articulated exactly what that disconnection looks like from the inside. I think for many guys, you try to think about what service can I provide at this point, because my work here is done to some extent. You know what that is? That's a man defaulting to function when he doesn't know how to access feeling. And if you've been anywhere near early parenthood, or you talked to someone who has, you know exactly what that looks like. The dad who reorganizes the house while his partner is exhausted and overwhelmed. The dad who's physically present, but somehow not there. Not because he doesn't love his kid, because no one ever told him that the gap he's feeling is normal. And nobody ever gave him language for it. Harry just gave it language. In a football club in Melbourne on a Tuesday. So what actually pulled him through that period? Because this is where the story gets interesting. Before Archie was born, his UK therapist gave him one piece of advice, just one. And when Harry described it on stage, there was a moment where the simplicity of it almost makes you laugh. Because you're expecting something profound, some technique, some framework. The advice was, just be aware of how you feel once the baby is born. That's it. Don't go numb. Don't disappear into getting things done. Just notice what's happening inside you. Which sounds incredibly simple, right? Except for someone whose entire default setting is to shut down and get on with it, that instruction is almost countercultural. It's telling you to do the one thing you've been trained not to do. And here's the thing. Harry followed it and stayed aware. And that awareness is what allowed him to catch something he might otherwise have completely missed. Every single time he came back from work stressed, the moment he picked Archie up, his son would start crying. Every time, which is the part that really gets uncomfortable. Because now it's not just about him anymore. Think about what's actually happening there. Archie can't read his dad's face with any real accuracy. He hasn't learned language yet. He has no way of knowing what a stress is as a concept. But a newborn is extraordinarily sensitive to the physical state of whoever is holding them. The muscle tension, the heart rate, and the quality of the grip. Harry walked in carrying the stress of his day, picked up his son, and Archie felt all of it before Harry had even registered it himself. That's not just a cute parenting story. That is the whole argument for doing the inner work before your kids arrive. Because babies don't respond to the version of yourself that you present to the world. They respond to the version of you that you actually are. You can't perform being a calm person for a newborn. They'll know. And Archie, apparently, always knew. But here's the bit from this Melbourne speech that I think deserves way more attention than it's been getting. Because midway through the conversation, Harry shifted from talking about his own experience to talking about something bigger. He started talking about what he thinks every parent owes that next generation. And he used a word that I suspect a lot of people would find surprising, coming from him. Upgrades. From my perspective, our kids are upgrades. That's not how I was taught, but that was my take on it. He was careful to explain what he meant. He wasn't saying he's better than his father or that Archie is better than him. It is not a ranking. He was saying something more nuanced. With the world the way that it goes, the kids that we bring up in today's world need to be an upgrade. And if you think back to that disconnected moment with Archie, you can see exactly what he's referring to. And he did something that, I'll be honest, I did not expect. He referenced his own parents. Not bitterly, not as a grievance. He made a rare and careful comment about King Charles and Princess Diana. And the way he framed it tells you a lot about where he's at right now. There's no judgment. There's no blame. There's no pointing the finger. The reality is that however you are parenting, that is a personal experience to you. You are going to want to improve on that. No judgment, no blame, no pointing the finger. You can decide what to make of that, knowing the history. But take the words at face value. And what Harry is really saying is that the upgrades idea isn't about criticizing the generation above. It's about accepting that the world moves forward. And parenting has to move with it. He even gave a concrete example. 40 years ago, there wasn't social media. That's just one example of conversations that are now happening in households between kids and parents that never existed between me and my parents. The challenges his kids face are different. The conversations his kids need are different. And part of preparing yourself to be a parent, part of the cleansing, is accepting that you can't just inherit the playbook from the generation above you and pass it on unchanged. That's actually a pretty radical thing to say. Most people parent roughly the way they were parented, and they do it without questioning it much. Harry essentially is arguing that every generation has an obligation to be intentional about it, to ask, what am I carrying that I don't want to pass forward? Toward the end of his time on stage, he turned directly to the fathers in the room, and what he said was short enough that it almost slipped by. To the dads and the soon-to-be dads, yes, it's messy. You'll have a roller coaster of emotions, and don't judge yourself. You're not alone. After everything he'd just said about disconnection and stress leaking through your hands and the impossible project of being emotionally present for a person who can't yet tell you what they need, he landed on 3 words. You're not alone. Because here's what actually makes this whole thing land the way it does. Harry mentioned that he's taken real heat for speaking about these issues publicly, and that every time he does, it only makes him more determined to keep going. That's not a man enjoying the attention. That's a man who's made a conscious choice to keep saying uncomfortable things in public because he believes the silence costs more than the discomfort. And he closed the whole conversation with the line that honestly hit different because of everything that came before it. He called fatherhood the most important and sort of transformational role that a guy can ever move into. He said "can ever" twice, like he started the sentence. Meant to land it quickly, then thought, no, actually, let me say that again. So here is where I will leave you. Forget the royal angle for a second. Forget the family drama and the Netflix documentary and everything else that orbits this man's name. Strip all of that away, and you're left with a guy standing in a room saying, I knew I had stuff. I dealt with it before my kids arrived. It was still hard. My newborn could feel my stress before I could, and other dads feel this way too. That's it. That is the whole speech. And the reason it's worth talking about is not because Harry said it. It's because of how rare it is still for a man to say it at all. Because you're not alone only works if someone says it first. But he did, at a football club in Melbourne on a random Tuesday in April. And sometimes that's all it takes.